It's gonna be very hard to win this game. Can we act like we're not a full team?
Huh?
I think we kill South. I think we have to kill South.
We can mirror them.
Huh?
We need to reset.
Huh?
As with any game, Apex has a lot of words and phrases that sound like complete gibberish to the untrained ear. Knowing this lingo will clear up communication with you and your teammates, and will make you perform a lot better as a team in any game of Apex. So we brought in Graceful, you know, this guy from the ALGS analyst desk, to help us explain 73 terms and phrases that are commonly used in Apex Legends. Welcome to the Apex University, and class is now in session. Oob, or oobing, stands for out of bounds and refers to a play where you land on a high, non-playable area and generally, but not exclusively, land onto another team. A POI is a point of interest, as in a named location on a map. Aping refers to pushing a team with full force, barely paying attention to cover, rarely caring about getting knocked, with the intention of wiping them out as quick as possible. This can also be known as sending it or W keying, from the W key on the keyboard, which makes you go forward. He's 1 should mean that an enemy is 1 HP, or rather 1 hit, which can range between 1 pellet from a Peacekeeper, that being 9 HP, or a wingman shot, that being 50. That being said, with some teammates, it could also mean a Kraber shot as well. Building off of this call, you can also add absolute, which means they actually are 1 HP, and not just 1 hit. Rotating refers to the specific path of a team moving from one position to another. It can mean moving from their drop spot to the end zone, or just between different positions in the middle of the game. By posturing, playing big, or making presence, you let other teams know that you are in the area by taking angles, poking or harassing them, and not allowing anyone else to enter your space. While posturing, playing big, or making presence can mean you are a fully equipped team, it can also be a fake by a weaker team trying to stop anyone from getting close enough to realize that they might be 1 or 2 man down. You can sort of compare this to the animal kingdom in real life, where some animals will posture by showing their teeth or fangs to show that they are a threat that shouldn't be trifled with. The inverse of this is called playing small, where instead of taking tons of angles and holding as much of an area as possible, the entire team might just play within 1 building, never peek out, and just hold 1 angle at a time, usually a door and or a window. However, this should not be confused with ratting, which is when a solo player or a full team plays for placement points by hiding out of sight for the rest of the enemy teams, sometimes going extreme lengths to do so. Ratting can also refer to rat plays, where you set up an ambush in order to get a free kill or maybe even a team wipe. Pinching generally refers to forcing one team into another team, usually by positioning yourselves in a way where you and another team are on one side each of that third team, where they are forced to run into either of you and take a fight in order to survive. Usually they just die. As for mirroring, this refers to following another team's rotation with the intention of then later on pinching them between another team and themselves, usually in a third party. Trading can mean a few things, but it usually means some type of exchange. A common use of the word is when enemies from 2 different teams end up knocking each other either at the same time, or because one pushed in, traded damage but got knocked, and then another teammate came in behind them to trade that knock and turn the fight back into a 2v2. The trade call can be made during fights, but can also be referring to when 2 teams are fighting and you're waiting for both sides to have knocks. And you might have noticed, I used trading in the middle of the sentence there. Trading doesn't have to be knocks, it can also apply to damage. For example, I traded 80 damage for 50. Swinging is when you quickly push around a corner to challenge a player. The swing is usually coordinated amongst teammates to pull off a double or even a triple swing and increase the odds of winning a trade. Playing edge refers to the strategy of playing around the edge of the moving zone, or in some cases even outside of the ring, where the end goal is taking isolated fights as far away from the majority of the enemy teams as possible, while getting as many kills and as much loot as they possibly can. Not only from the kills and the fights, but player versus environment things such as spiders or prowlers, and of course crafting as well, with the plan of getting into the end game fully equipped. The inverse of this is playing zone, where you try to rotate early in the match and then holding a position, either big or small, where you think that the zone will pull in the final rings. Generally, when playing zone, you will be looking for the God spot, and the God spot is the best position within the zone. You are most likely to win the game if you play from this position. The term griefing can have many uses, but the common theme always refers to a team that eliminates another team by disrupting their position, their gameplay, or experience, usually at the cost of themselves. It can be griefed by a team making a bad decision that gets you both killed. Challing, or challenging a player, means pushing an enemy. The next level of this is ego challing, where you will push or even wide swing an enemy fully confident that you will deal more damage than they will and win the 1 versus 1. Ego challing normally refers to when you take a bad duel. The act of throwing is making a large mistake that costs you the game. Resetting usually means getting back to full health without taking any more additional damage. A contest is when 2 or more teams land at a single POI, usually with the intention of fighting one another off of drop. Sometimes the teams will land in separate sections of the same POI and then run up at each other, and sometimes they will land at the same building or even the same loot node or bin. If they land right on top of each other, this is usually called a 50-50 because the winner is determined by the flip of a coin. A coach is a more experienced or even better player that watches your gameplay either as you're playing or in a recording afterwards, who then proceeds to give you tips or information on how you personally can improve. Also, quick shout out, if you guys are looking for coaches to evolve your gameplay, you should check out my coaching site, otter.coach. The IGL or in-game leader is the captain of the team that will call the plays. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule, and sometimes there might be a co-IGL helping them out, but the IGL is generally the one calling all of the shots with the final say. When a standing teammate calls for a knock or a knocked teammate calls to be used, this will generally refer to a down teammate raising their knockdown shield in order for the standing teammate to play behind it and use them as cover. 3-to-1ing refers to when the whole team look at one enemy, and once the countdown is finished, they all shoot the enemy at the same time, with the coordinated fire generally being enough to secure a knock. Some players will call that they want to go for a 3-to-1, and some just start counting down while pinging, not to miss the opening. Anchoring is the act of one team member holding a position while the others scout ahead or are looking for entry damage. It is usually the same player staying back each game, and this falls under the team role called Anchor. Another team role is of course the Fragger, who is the player who's designated to be the first person in or working the flanks with the sole purpose of finding entry damage or knocks. In competitive play, the Fragger is almost exclusively a controller player. The Refragger is usually right behind the Fragger, in between the Anchor and the Fragger. Their job is to clean up the damage caused by the Fragger or trade if the Fragger ends up getting knocked. This can be followed by the Refragger trying to stabilize and the Anchor pushing up. Space is a concept when it comes to control and positioning. In short, it is the area you can play while not getting shot at. Making space means clearing out enemies from areas, as well as taking angles to deny the enemy team from gaining space themselves. Fighting for space is an invisible fight that takes place during every team fight. Gatekeeping is when you hold a position, usually a choke or a good high ground near the edge of the zone, in order to stop an enemy team from rotating in and taking the position that you want. This usually goes hand in hand with playing big, as you want to shoot at the rotating team to discourage them from going your way. Playing your life usually means playing to stay alive instead of playing for getting kills, and in the case of both of your teammates being down, or if the fight is lost, it can mean running away from the fight and going for a rat's play down the line. A Virginade, Skynade, or Instanade are all grenades that are thrown either straight up or with a slight arc, which makes them explode almost instantly on impact. Playing aggro or being aggro is just short for playing aggressively. Firsting or finning an enemy refers to finishing down enemies. When a position is called safe or safe on me, this is usually during a grenade or ability bombardment, where one player has found a spot where they won't take any damage. In the same vein, if you're in or in on someone, this means that you're still going to be within the zone once the ring closes. A digital threat can be referred to as a DT or as a Digi. If you've ever watched a pro VOD and heard them communicate, you've definitely heard them say two numbers in rapid succession, usually something like 28 or 40. This communicates their shield heals, where the first number is their amount of batteries and the second one being their cells. In some teams, they will also communicate the rest of their heals, where the third number is their medkits, fourth is their syringes, and their fifth is their phoenixes, though the most common call is just for shields. If you are a controller player, the Q call might sound strange. It's a callout deriving from mouse and keyboard players and refers to the tactical ability button, which is bound to Q by default. That being said, most controller players will still refer to the tactical as Q, just to save time. That being said, this doesn't apply to ultimates, which is bound to Z by default. The default call is usually the name of the legend and then ult, but I will cover some variations later in the video. The high ground is generally the ideal position. This allows you to make more decisions and have a good view of the battlefield, as well as the ideal angle against enemies if you're going for trades. As such, the low ground is the opposite. Playing low ground means you don't have a decisive position, and you usually will want to keep your head down. A head glitch refers to when only the utmost top or the head of your legend is visible to the enemy, but you still have a good view of the enemy in your own sights. The term derives from old first-person shooters where you could stand behind a cover and remain completely behind that cover, all while being able to still shoot at your enemy. A head glitch can also be referred to as a heady. When somebody is flesh, they have no shield. The call can either be the amount of damage that they've received, or that they are flesh, or the amount of damage in red. Another call for an enemy being flesh can be cracked, as their armor is cracked, or hit him 70 flesh. A call to punish is to punish an enemy's mistake. Backshots are shooting a team in the back, usually by third partying. If you tank it or eat it, this means that that you stay in a position despite getting abilities and grenades thrown at you, usually meaning that you end up taking damage from these grenades and healing it up without ever moving. A free kill is usually an enemy that's in the open, very often mid-rotation, especially as the zone is closing behind them. But it's really just an enemy that is exposed to you and your team and isn't paying attention to you, hence free. Playing slow refers to letting the game play itself out without making any additional decisions that can impact the flow of the game. A bot, a noob, or a Bambi refers to a player who's new to the game. By the time somebody ends up being called a bot, they've either shown terrible mechanics, positioning, a default skin, or killed a streamer. If an enemy has been beamed, lasered, or fried, this means that they've been hit for a very large chunk of health. This rarely means they got knocked because that would be a separate callout. Body heals or white meds or white heals refer to syringes or medkits, and in some rare cases Phoenix kits, basically items that heal your health and not necessarily your shields. Choking something generally means messing up a play, missing a shot, or screwing up an ability placement, oftentimes due to pressure. And now, as promised, there are a lot of legend-specific terms that are self-explanatory, but I will name them here to avoid any confusion down the line. Obviously, there are calls for the legend and then their ability, like Horizon Lift or something like that, but the following callouts have their own name outside of that rule. A TP, port, or portal refers to Ash's or Wraith's portal, usually Wraith's because who plays Ash? A smoke always refers to Bangle or Smoke. A wall refers to Catalyst's ultimate. Barrels or traps will refer to Caustic's Nox gas barrels. A bubble refers to Gibraltar's defensive dome. Calling for Lifeline's passive revivability can be asking for the Lifeline to tap you, or in the words of Shiv FPS,
Where's me? Lifeline use! Where's?
Lifeline's Q is also known as a drone. Watsons can be told to put gen down or to set up fences. This means ulting or setting up their fences. Cats will be told to put their spikes down or enforce, which is their tactical and then their passive respectively. Pathfinder's ultimate is known as a zip. Maggie's ultimate is referred to as a ball. Crypto's ultimate is known as the EMP, and when you are talking about a scan, it's used either for Bloodhound's tactical or Seer's passive. In some cases, being scanned can just mean being affected by the scan effect, which then could include several other legends, for example, Crypto's drone. Dashboarding or Alt F4ing refers to an old exploit that's come back a few times through the game's history, where the user can go to the dashboard under console or Alt F4 under PEC to leave the game without losing RP. This would generally be used when they were about to lose. Setting up refers to the act of setting up whatever defensive abilities and utility you might have, like Watson fences, defensive pylon, catalyst spikes and enforcements, caustic traps, and more. Util or utility refers to non-gun related resources such as the team's ultimate or tactical cooldowns, as well as their grenades, and in some cases, survival items. Meatballing or deathballing, or calls like it, usually refers to a free man steamrolling into an enemy team, very much like a free man swing. But the deathball will generally refer to pushing into a position rather than just swinging an angle. Focus legend name means that you need to focus your fire on a specific legend. This is usually a support legend that can bring your enemy back, or the enemy fragger who you know will deal a lot of damage if left unchecked. But this is just in fights. If you use the focus call outside of a fight, it can also just be used to bring attention to something, like a Valkyrie ultimate or a Gibraltar bubble running out, basically telling your team to pay attention because there's going to be free kills there very soon. A jiggle peek refers to quickly jiggling in and out of cover. Kidnapping is the act of a Wraith using her ultimate in conjunction of a phase to run straight into an enemy and force them to take her portal, usually followed by her teammates waiting on the enemy on the other side. If somebody is stuck, this means that they were hit by an arc star or fuses Q. The act of poking refers to shooting at an enemy, usually without the intention of getting a knock, and instead with the intention of denying them to rotate when you're playing big, or to get damage on your Evo shield, or because you are bored and you haven't shot your gun in a while. Pubs is short for public matches, as in the normal playlist. Scrims, short for scrimmages, refer to custom lobbies where teams play in a controlled environment with the end goal of becoming better as a team against other teams who have the same intention, usually. SBMM stands for skill-based matchmaking, which makes sure that you always play against enemies around your own skill level, usually. If you're slow healing, this means that you're only using small healing items such as cells or syringes, rather than a bat, medkit, or Phoenix kit, which are often referred to as big heals. A smurf is a higher skilled player who either created a new account or abused the SBMM to get into easier lobbies to destroy players much worse than themselves. Shield swapping or swapping refers to when you go into a def box to swap your armor with theirs. If you set up a shield swap, this means taking fresh shields out of the box and dropping them on the floor for convenience later on. Any tower or elongated, maybe even phallic object will always be referred to as dildo. Calling that somebody's cheating, while it might seem like an excuse, can be an important call out. This is usually after getting hit for an insanely high amount of damage in a short period of time, and allows the team to approach the fight accordingly. It can also mean if a player does other suspicious behavior, such as pre-firing, shooting through smokes with non-digital threat weapons, or by having information that they just shouldn't have. In the same vein, see he's on controller. Pre-firing is of course peeking an enemy and shooting before you actually see them. The term rage hacking is when you are using cheats to an undeniable degree. You're using blatant cheating like hard aimbotting, speed hacking, fly hacking, or even spawning armors or loot. On the inverse, soft cheating is somebody who uses cheats but with the intention of not getting caught. Usually they will be using things like wall hacks or aim keys, which is an aimbot that they toggle on some occasions. Calling that somebody is scripting works the same way and refers to a player who's pulling off movement nearly impossible without using artificial assistance such as macro scripts or configs. Camping a banner means you'll keep staying on their death box for 90 seconds to time them out, denying the player a chance to get back in the game. It's worth noting that this is way less valuable if they have a support player because they can simply be crafted back into the game. Plugging someone in is another word for using a respawn beacon, and a MOBI refers to a mobile respawn beacon. But while we're at it, let's cover some map-specific callouts, starting out with Stormpoint. The bean is this unnamed POI on Stormpoint, and this is why it's called bean. This is the bean right here. The egg, the balls, the bolma, always refers to these yellow round things on Stormpoint. Zip houses is a bit ambiguous. It could refer to any house with a zip line, so that could be these buildings with these really long zip lines between them that you can find on Stormpoint, or it can refer to a building with the zip line elevator shaft. The IMC or the Armory refers to these buildings that used to be a PvE event with the same name. A donut refers to these round buildings on Stormpoint. Generally, it just means round building. This building on Echo Headquarters is referred to as Pyramid. Chicken feet or fingers refers to these walkways by a launch pad or north pad. Jurassic refers to the POI Forbidden Zone, which before it had an actual name was known as Jurassic since, Stormpoint came out. In the same vein, this spot is referred to as Thunderwatch as it was formerly called on Stormpoint. Moving on, we have World's Edge. Train station refers to the former train stations you can find on World's Edge. The pub or the diner refers to this specific type of building on World's Edge. Green or labs means this green building because it is green and also because it has labs inside. And it's worth noting that on World's Edge, Market refers to buildings that look like this. Raven or Crow refers to the position under the Raven statue that you can find south of Trials. As for platform, that can refer to this spot. It can also refer to these zipline spots by Thermal or this platform by Lava Siphon. It basically just means that if it's a platform, it's going to be referred to as a platform. A van, a truck, a snowmobile, or an RV will refer to any of the trucks on World's Edge. A God Rock refers to a rock that is really good to hold and is very difficult to push. Generally, they are god spots for certain endgames, and two definite God Rocks will be this rock by Mirage. Jungle Gym or Metal refers to these scaffoldings on Thermal. Fences refer to this very position southwest of Harvester or west of the bridge. This spot can also be referred to as blue boxes. Eggs, eggshells, or dome refer to these dome-shaped structures. Broken house can literally mean a broken house, but generally refers to this specific type of model or construction. Streamer building refers to this specific building. It would normally be known as a zip building because of the zipline elevator shaft, but because it is in every single clip or montage, it's going to be referred to as the streamer building. These gondolas on Lava Siphon and Climatizer are known as gondolas. This spot on Lava Siphon is known as Command Center. A Dorito refers to a tasty snack, but also this triangle-shaped house you can find on World's Edge. Snake will always refer to curvy buildings, and S-Choke refers to this specific choke by Harvester. And moving on, as for Olympus and Broken Moon, there hasn't really been that much time to cultivate specific callouts in competitive, so they're really just general calls and I don't feel like going over them because they're just so generic. But let's cover the first map that came out with the game, King's Canyon. And what's funny is most of the OG callouts were patched out, but I do want to cover a few of the ones that are still around. We have Bunker Town, which refers to this unnamed POI west of the bunker. River Town is this unnamed POI next to bunker. Forest or jungle will refer to this area south of artillery. The Pit refers to this place which previously was known and named as the Pit, and of course Connector refers to this specific choke point by containment. Also, of course, a huge shout out to Graceful from Team Nessie for actually helping me with adding this specific part, because there were a lot of comp specific callouts that I had forgotten or missed, and he helped me bridging that gap. So, make sure to toss him a follow if you do have the chance. And those are 73 of the words and phrases that are commonly used in Apex Legends.